It's a tale of two central banks, which both had their final policy meetings of the year this week. The Federal Reserve tapers its stimulus, while the Bank of Japan keeps spending freely. It's understandable that the BOJ decided to stay put. Its latest Tankan survey shows business sentiment at a 6-year high, and consumer prices are continuing to rise, a convincing argument Japan can finally say goodbye to 15 years of deflation. But in 2014, the BOJ is likely to have to shake things up. Here's why. Economists and even some BOJ board members are starting to think the central bank's self-imposed target of reaching 2% inflation in 2 years is overly ambitious, especially with a planned sales tax hike in the wings.
In terms of whether they can hit the 2% CPI target under current settings, it's beginning to look probably a little unlikely. But we have to keep in mind, of course, that the economy will be hitting a pretty substantial speed bump with the increase in the consumption tax, which will be coming in April from 5% to 8%. And that will quite naturally have a dampening effect on private consumption.
The need to offset the tax hike and keep its inflation goal in sight is likely to force the BOJ's hand. A Reuters survey shows almost 2/3 of Japanese companies think the BOJ will boost its stimulus in the first half of next year. Kurtz at Nomura agrees.
So it's probably around the time of the second quarter, when that consumption tax increase comes, that the BOJ will see the strongest incentive to increase the amount of quantitative easing to try to offset that impact from the tax increase.
Another round of stimulus could weaken the yen further, which is good news for Japan's exporters. But given that the BOJ already delivered an intense stimulus burst this year, the market impact could be more limited. And even more investors will be wondering what happens when the spending is finally scaled back.